Let us look at tuples. A tuple is a collection which is ordered, which is the same as a list, but the difference is that it is unchangeable. Tuples are typically written with round brackets. So unlike lists that use a square bracket, we will be using a round bracket or a what we call a parentheses like this. So let's take an example. I will create a tuple which is equal to, we'll keep it simple. We have A and then B and then we have C. And if we print this tuple, we will get A, B and C. To access an item like we had done earlier, we can write print this tuple and then in square brackets write the number. So if we write 1, we get the second position, which is B. Similarly, we have a negative index as well. So the last number would be a -1. If you write -1, then it returns C. Remember, the first number starts at 0 and the last one is -1. If you want a range of indexes, let us say we have a few more values here. We have D and E and F. We can now write, let's say 0:2, and this will return the first two values for me. Remember, the 2 is not included. If you want a negative index, we can write, let's say -3, -1, and that will result in the last two values, which is F and E. I'm sorry, in E and D, if you write 0 here, that will result in an error. Let me just check this once. Wait a second. So if we write -1, if we write -1, it should give us F, which is the last value, right? But if you're giving it a range, if you tell it -3 colon -1, then you notice that the last value is not included. So just be very, very careful about that. Now remember that once a tuple is created, you cannot change the values, which means that the values are unchangeable. So you can either say that these are unchangeable, or you can also say that these are immutable. But there is a workaround. The workaround is that, let's say our values were like this. Okay, I'm just keeping 3 values for simplicity, and let's call this X. And if we say X is equal to list of Y is equal to a list of X, what we're doing is we're converting the tuple into a list. Now we can use Y1 is equal to, let's say, the number 1, and then we convert it back. So we say that X is equal to tuple Y, and then we say print X. So I hope you understood what we did. Because we can't directly change the value of a tuple, we converted it to a list. Then we changed the second item on the list into the number 1. So we replaced B with 1. And then we converted the list back into a tuple, and then we are printing it like this. We can of course loop through a tuple. So this would be the same as earlier for X in, let me just put this as Y in X. We want to print Y. And this will give us A, B, and C. If you want to find if an item exists, you can write if D in this tuple, which is X, you want to print the result saying that D exists. Wait a second, let me remove the, okay. So as you can see, D doesn't exist, but if I said that does C exist, it will tell me that the value exists. We can just put C here, so the value exists. To find a tuple length is again very simple. You can write print len and then the tuple name, and it tells you the number of items that are there. Now do remember that if we want to create a tuple with only one item, it's a little peculiar. Like if I say x is equal to only one item, let's say hello, you notice that I will have to put a comma after this, right? Just remember this part. And then when you print type this tuple, it will tell you that the class is a tuple. Do remember that if this comma wasn't there, one second, I'm sorry, there should be x. It says that it's a string, but the moment you say comma, then it tells you that it's a tuple, right? So just remember this bit. Removing items is again not difficult. If you have a tuple with you, you can say del the tuple name, and then when you print it, it will result in an error, obviously, because the entire tuple has been removed. Let's see how we can join two tuples. So I'm going to first make two tuples. So we'll just call this x1 and let's call this x2. And this can be D, E, and F. So we say that x3 is equal to x1 plus x2, and then when we print x3, we will get the result with all the 6 items in it. There are two inbuilt methods that we have. So we have count and index.